Chris, I'll give this question to you. Who wins the Western Conference, in your opinion?
Well, of course, we know what Bruce Bowen is going to say.
No, we do not. I think you're wrong about that.
I know what he's going to say. Look, a couple of weeks ago, I would have been with him. I was picking San Antonio, but I'm concerned about the Tony Parker situation. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious. I talked to one trainer who hasn't worked with Parker, but he's a longtime NBA trainer. He said, you know, as far as explanation about tendinitis in the shin, that's almost impossible to get. He said if there's a shin problem, it's probably bone-related, which could be a stress fracture, which obviously would be more serious. But hopefully Parker's back. But look, at this point, I have to go with Oklahoma City still kind of by default. They're not as good as they were last year with James Harden. I love Denver, but they don't have a star, and we just rarely see teams without a superstar get to the NBA Finals, so I can't fully pick them. I like Memphis, but something about, while I think they could pull an upset, I don't think they could win the conference. So, and the Clippers are shaky, even though they looked good yesterday. I'm going with Oklahoma City kind of by default.
All right, Bruce.
Well, it's unfortunate that I have to take so much grief from people.
I understand.
And, you know, poor me.
Poor you, I'm sorry.
But I do feel good about, you know, the San Antonio Spurs, if healthy. Now, I'll say if healthy. I'll put a little statement on the side of that. There was a time where I was with OKC until the James Harden trade.
Right.
They're no longer the same team.
Agreed.
They missed the creativity of James Harden. But if Tony Parker is not 100%, and you're not dealing with Manu Ginobili being 100%, it really puts a lot of pressure on the Spurs as far as, you know, overcoming the things that took place last year. Your role players, they don't have anyone that create for others quite like Tony and Manu. Tim is having a fantastic season, you know, and so
one of his best.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you know, you look at, you know, the Denver team. If that team is not healthy, it's truly up in the air for anyone. And I disagree with Chris as far as Denver. The fact that they don't have a superstar that they constantly go to, you don't know how to necessarily prepare for that group. That group, it could be Ty Lawson one night. It can be Andre Miller another night. It can be Fareed, his energy. Because they don't have a superstar, that's what allows them to continue to keep teams off guard.
Gut feeling. Who you got now?
San Antonio.
You're sticking with them?
I'm sticking with them.
Bruce, your sources in San Antonio may be better than mine.
Oh, Chris, give him a break.
This is what I'm told, that Tony Parker's ankle will not heal until the offseason, until he has a couple of months where he does nothing on it. You watch him as much as I do. Tony Parker has lost his burst getting into the lane, coming off the ankle injury. I don't care about the shin splints. I don't care about the alleged neck injury that's keeping him out right now. I don't know what that is. I care about the ankle. I care about the quickness, and I don't see it. So if he's a shell of himself and Manu misses the first round, Chris was making the case earlier. I agree. I don't know where their seed's going to fall, but if they I was saying before yesterday, I wouldn't write off the Lakers if they can get in the tournament. It's wide open, man. Could they beat the Spurs in the first round? Yes. Yes, they could without Tony and Manu,
is that
obviously.
feasible?
That is feasible, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, you know, with that. Because the Lakers, as of right now, they're not playing that inspired basketball.
Well, and when you look after yesterday.
Well, now that game yesterday, Clippers are just better than the Lakers. That's what took place. The athleticism, the youth, that all showed against the Lakers. But having a defensive identity, I know that I talk about defense a lot because that's what Phil believed in. Phil utilized 2 7-footers in that offense there. It's not about scoring. It's the defense for the Lakers, and it's just, you know, if they can come together and understand that within, I guess, 2 weeks, then it's possible for them to maybe make a run towards the Western Conference Finals.
Gut feeling they make the playoffs?
Yes. I feel they have too much talent not to. Now, Utah Jazz, yes, they're 7-1 or 8-1 right now in their past 8 or 9 games, but they also lost at home. They lost at home to Denver. Now, they're fighting for their playoff lives, and I think their youth is what shows more than anything else right now as far as losing games towards the end of the season that they should not lose.
Yep. Chris Broussard, I'm going to agree with you.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah. So, Chris.
Denver at home, a loss?
If you're fighting for the playoffs, Chris, it doesn't matter. You got to bring your A game. It's not about saying, oh, you know, well, we lost to this group, because Denver didn't outplay them from first quarter to fourth quarter. It was the third and fourth that they just had their way with. And that's when you got to bear down as a team that's fighting for a playoff spot.
So, Chris, you used the word picking Oklahoma City by default. I will agree with that word, because I think Oklahoma City is a quietly troubled basketball team. Without James Harden, who, by the way, led the NBA last year in fourth quarter free throws made. That's a huge loss for them. They don't have that stabilizing fourth quarter factor that Harden was to run the point some and to do some of the big heavy lifting and scoring in the fourth quarter. Yesterday, Durant was 1 for 6 in the fourth quarter. And yesterday, once again, Westbrook winds up taking 27 shots to Durant's 17 shots. Well, who's the man in Oklahoma City? I don't know. I think it's now Westbrook. He is the man. They go to Westbrook. He is the go-to scorer for the team. I don't love that. I think that could get them beaten somewhere down the path in the postseason.
I hear what you're saying. And look, is it a point, though? You've been riding Westbrook, and you know, I like Russell's play a lot. I think he's critical for that team because he keeps the defense off balance. He breaks them down all the time. They can't handle him. But I know your criticisms of him are fair because he's clearly not a distributing type point guard. But at what point do we begin to look at Kevin Durant? I mean, Kevin Durant has to go and demand the basketball. He has to show us more of a killer instinct. You know, you're always in that honeymoon phase your first few years. He's a terrific player. Looks like he's going to have a Hall of Fame type career. But now it's to the stage where, you know what, we start nitpicking. And he has to go ahead and say, I'm the man on this team. Or go to Scott Brooks in private and say, Scott, you got to start getting me the ball in the fourth quarter. You mentioned he was 1 for 6, but 2 of those shots came in the last minute.
They did.
When it was basically over.
Yep.
So he was essentially 1 for 4 in the first 11 minutes of a tight game.
That's fair.
And not only was Westbrook shooting, Reggie Jackson was not looking for Durant. I mean, Reggie Jackson went in there and played like Westbrook.
And he
like
did
he
okay.
was the,
yeah.
and he played okay. You know, he did some good things.
He did.
But I'm like, why aren't you getting the ball to your guy? What leading scorer in the league has ever, and I'm sure there's been somebody, probably a center, who got fouled a lot and so his field goal attempts were down. But when is a leading scorer in the NBA ever not even been taking the most shots on his own team?
Chris,
he shoots 17 times a game, Westbrook 18 times. You can't be okay with that if you're the best scorer in the NBA.
Chris, it's called a definition of your role. And by Reggie Jackson there's one point in that fourth quarter where Kevin Durant, he clapped a couple of times and he finally got him the ball. It's about the roles. You can't look at what Westbrook does and what Kevin Durant does and feel like, hey, I can do that as well. It's about the roles. And right now, you have Kevin Durant trying to be a facilitator as well. He's trying to take on the role of what James Harden was last year, which is, you know, it's not for him. You want him at his best strength. He needs to score. Yes, he does. But more importantly, the bench. The bench, they got to get back to their defensive ways, Chris. They allowed the New York Knicks to shoot over 50% yesterday. And then defended a three. That was incredible that they were able to just get off the three-point shots that they were. Here it is. You had Jason Kidd. You know that he's a three-point shooter now. Run him off the line. And then the J.R. Smith threes, some of them were deep and things of that nature, but their defensive identity is no longer there as well. This is what you used to get with Harden on the floor. He could go to the top scorer and defend him and limit his effectiveness. But where is that at now? That's where I have the issue with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're not bringing it quite like they did last season.
Yeah, I've talked with Kevin about this earlier in the year, Kevin Durant, and he's obviously shooting the fewest amount of shots since his rookie year. And, you know, three-pointers is fewest in like 4 years. He is, as you said, Bruce, trying to take on more of the facilitator role like James Harden, but it's hurting him. You know, he has to be a flat-out scorer for that team. And
by the way, Chris, if memory serves, because I looked this up the other day, I think Shaq led the league in scoring in, I want to say 99, 2000, and then his teammate Kobe took more shots than he took the next year. So that was the last time that happened.